Right.
Or if a man's on his masculine side and the woman's on her masculine side, there's not going to be any attraction. So this is like magnets, a positive pole and a negative pole. If you get them close enough, and that would be in bed together, suddenly something happens. It's like it clicks. I should actually, at my desk, I should carry a magnet so you can see they just kind of feel nice, like good friends. You're happy together, you're enjoying something more special than anybody else. But when you get in bed together, when you get this close, it snaps. And that snap is the passion that couples can feel. And they experience it a lot in the beginning, but it will tend to go away because the newness is gone. Newness stimulates dopamine.
Okay.
And familiarity stimulates serotonin.
Okay.
These are opposite forces, the serotonin. So here's a fun little scenario of what happens in relationships. Biologically, now this is one of my other older books, but I've been thinking about it lately and I should bring it out because it's such a fun story. Because I was understanding why men have a greater tendency for addiction. Okay. And they do. All right. So there's a greater tendency in men for addiction. And so I looked at why. Well, it turns out that dopamine is made out of 3 amino acids, but we'll just call it one for right now, phenylalanine, which converts into tryptozine, not tryptozine, but anyway, we'll just stick with one for right now, phenylalanine. And so you eat your protein, it has many amino acids, but one of those amino acids is phenylalanine, and it's a precursor, one of the precursors to make dopamine.
Okay.
Well, men, if you look at a male body, my male body is composed of muscle and fat, and of course, bones and so forth. I have 25% more muscle cells than fat cells. All right. So this is my balance as a man. It's a major source of energy for me is muscle energy.
Right.
Women are born with a body which is 25% more fat cells than muscle cells. Okay, so this is universal. Okay, we are built differently.
Right.
Now, when you understand how we're built, now, if I'm a man, I need to get energy, I have to use my muscles, and then I have to rest my muscles. That's a whole nother description, but we use our muscles, then we recover. And when we use our muscles, we do make testosterone, which is this male hormone. But also, when we use our muscles, to rebuild the muscles, we use up phenylalanine.
Okay.
Phenylalanine is used up by men's muscles, whereas for women, they don't have as much muscle mass compared to fat, and therefore they don't use up their phenylalanine. So women have more dopamine. And at the end of the day, to a great extent, men use up their dopamine because always when they're using their muscles are competing for the same amino acid that would make dopamine. So if I've had a stressful day, if I've worked really hard, either mentally or physically, particularly with our muscles, but even when I'm a writer, but even when I'm writing, my body is the muscles are engaged as, I'm intent, even as I'm typing, whatever, the muscles are engaged. And so I will run out of more quickly than a woman phenylalanine, which means that my dopamine levels, I've run out. So what does dopamine do for a man or a woman? Dopamine motivates you.
Okay.
So dopamine says, oh, there's a problem to solve. There's a fire. Let me put it out. There's a fire. Let me put it out. There's a fire. Let me put it out. Oh, a problem. Let me solve it. A hungry child. Let me cook for them. Oh, the house is dirty. Let me clean for them. So this is dopamine, right? So men at the end of the day, they run out of dopamine. So that's why they tend to become passive at the end of the day. Whereas women stay busy, busy, busy. They're actually designed biologically to stay busy all the time, not just because they have dopamine, but dopamine to stay busy without becoming totally exhausted, you need to be able to produce lots of energy. Well, a woman's body is designed to make 20 times more energy than a man's if she's relaxed.
Oh.
So she feels stressed, she can't make energy. She uses it from her muscles rather than her fat cells. Fat cells make 20 times more energy, but in order to burn fat, she has to be relaxed. She has to feel supported in her life, as opposed to feeling, I don't have enough time, I can't get it all done, and so forth. Whereas a man, he can feel, I don't have enough time, but I have no energy, so forget it. I have no dopamine. So a man comes home with without any dopamine. A woman has all this dopamine. But a woman also has another condition. Besides, she's run out of energy if she's on her male side. That's one part. But two, if she's on her female side, she'll be more emotional. Whenever you're emotional, now this is more research that shows the difference between a man's brain and a woman's brain. A woman's brain, if she's experiencing moderate stress, not high stress, but moderate stress, compared to a man's brain, or actually just look at her body, she will have 8 times more blood flow to the emotional part of the brain under moderate stress. A man will have no blood flow to the brain and the emotional part of the brain under moderate stress. So men do not get upset about the same things women do. Men get upset about big things, but the small things, no big deal. Don't worry about it. Nothing I can do about it. This is his normal operating system for a man. Many men are losing that because they've been feminized, because what men are taught is don't complain. This is something that's part of being a man for thousands of years. You don't whine, you don't complain. If you're lifting a heavy weight, you can make a little noise. That's about it. We're not, the language center in a man's brain is like half the size of a woman's, and a woman's is 8 times more active because it's connected to all the other parts of the brain, whereas a man, it's not. So men don't complain is one aspect, whereas women, if they have an emotional reaction, they need to talk about it. And if they talk about it, it can go down very quickly. But if she doesn't talk about it, she becomes more and more stressed. And when her brain becomes stressed, the brain tries to calm down by producing serotonin. Okay, so serotonin is the calming element. It calms her down. But if she's experiencing this increased blood flow to the emotional part of the brain of moderate stress, she's depleting her serotonin levels all day long. When she comes home from work, she has no serotonin, which basically serotonin allows you to feel relaxed and comfortable and everything's okay. I've got plenty of time. Everything's all right. Life's good. That's serotonin. But she can deplete that serotonin very, very quickly when she's under moderate stress, which the workplace always is moderate stress. So she comes home with no serotonin and plenty of dopamine. Remember, she hasn't run out of dopamine. So basically, she says, I have no time, no money, no support, but I'm going to do it anyway. and he comes home from work with plenty of serotonin because he doesn't have that emotional reactivity all the time. So serotonin says everything's okay. And dopamine says you don't have to do anything today. So she says, we've got to clean up the house. The guests are coming. He says, why don't you know these people? Let's do it. Why bother? Or she'll ask him to do something. He'll say, hey, I'll get it done tomorrow. We'll do it the next day. We'll do it the next day. This is all biological. It's so amazing because women always are frustrated because she asks the guy to do something and says, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. He doesn't have enough dopamine to motivate him now to do it because he needs that dopamine. And if it was a big fire, oh, that's danger. That's the dopamine levels go high again. So he will pull from his dopamine reserves to do that. But the bottom line is men are always chill. It's kind of like if I don't, so this explains another aspect of male-female, which is for the man, you could actually look at this as a genetic difference, okay? Which is a man has a gene that says, never do anything unless you have to.
Okay.
This is not easy for women to have that experience. They always are sort of driven by,
Right.
I should always give, because if you have a baby, you should always give. That's why nature gives you 20 times more energy if you have someone protecting you, making you feel safe, which is what should happen before you make the baby, right? So it all fits together perfectly until we have a world where so many women are having babies and there's no man around.
Yes.
This is just that she's not having that support. That's one. And two is she needs a new kind of support, because what will lower her stress, and now we'll get to the hormones, what will lower her stress is that when he can communicate to her and interact with her in a way that says, I hear you, and you don't have to do everything yourself. So these are two powerful stimulators of the hormone estrogen. So when a woman is stressed, her brain will use up serotonin to calm the stress, but it just calms it. But if she's in a situation, a relationship, in her relationship, either with a spouse or a friend or with God, whatever, in her relationship with the external outside of her, if she feels I have support, I can depend on that and experience that, yes, I can depend on that support, or that support is on its way, then a hormone gets produced called estrogen. And women, in order to cope with stress, need to be making 10 times more estrogen than men. Men, to cope with stress, they need to be making 10 times more testosterone.
Mm.
For a woman to have romantic feelings, her estrogen levels have to double, which means that she has a lot of support. And
Right.
support, feeling, oh, I can ask for help and I can get it. And oh, someone, to be able to ask for help and get it, somebody also has to understand what your needs are. And
Right.
so when a woman feels understood, her estrogen levels will go up. And when she asks for help, her estrogen levels will go up. And for my mother, who lived in a different world, in a different generation, she didn't have to ask, because every day a man knew my job is to make money and manage the kids. Okay, he's the policeman at home. So she could always say, I'll tell your dad. So as the dad, he's the policeman. He provides protection for her. He gives her more power, but also he provides nutrients for the family from the outside world. She creates the home inside the world. To a certain extent, we could summarize the male-female relationship. But today, women are outside the home. Okay, so they're on their male side. So what is the major role for a man today? The major role that he hasn't been taught and can be taught by her is, in the right way, is that she needs his help to come back to her female side to make estrogen. And she needs his support to also do behaviors that will produce progesterone. So for a woman after her period, if she's cycling, after her period, as she gets closer and closer to ovulation, her estrogen levels need to go higher and higher. So her need to feel safe and supported at that time is imperative. So that's the best time to go on a romantic date, is 3 days before ovulation. And a week before that is the time to plan it. Don't wait till the last minute. Because when a man and a woman decide what's going to happen on the weekend, it should always be for her. That's what romance is. It's not for him. If the date is for him, then it makes male hormones in her and female hormones in him. He doesn't need more female hormones. He needs more male hormones. So when he does something selflessly, the more selfless a man's actions are, the higher testosterone levels he will experience.
Oh, wow.
This is what masculinity is always about. If you look historically, it's as if men and women got together and said, and the men said, we're really unhappy. What we need is a happy woman around. So we figured this thing out. And anything that we can do that will make you happy, we will do. Anything you don't want to do, we will do for you. And so what are the things that you don't want to do? And what are the things you do want to do? And the women said, well, we don't want to go into the jungle and risk our lives. And we don't want to have to go tramping through the hunting to get the animals. We don't want to have to stand guard. No, we want to be able to have time at home feeling safe with our babies, because they didn't have birth control then. They all had babies. And we'd like to spend time in our gardens and cook food and clean, because they had female hormones that anytime you cook for someone or you clean for someone, you're actually producing estrogen. That was in that generation, and that made them feel very, very good. Now, today, for many women, the thought of cleaning their house, or the thought of cooking a meal or doing laundry, any of those things, she immediately goes, well, I have no interest in that at all. That's because she's on her male side, because men don't have an interest in those things. Men basically said a long time ago, the deal is, I'm going to do everything, the dirty jobs, the dangerous jobs, the difficult jobs, all to make you happy. And all you have to do is do what makes you happy. So what do you want to do to make you happy? And she said, well, I like cooking. Well, I like working in the garden. Well, I like making things beautiful. So, okay, that's what you get to do. This is what we're going to do. And we don't do it with any complaining, because we don't want to make you feel like you can't ask for that. But they didn't have to ask, because historically, up to my father's generation, men knew that was their job. And if they did their job, their wives were happy. So their wives didn't complain. And if women have no complaints, men have no complaints. And so he was able to stay masculine. When a man complains, he becomes feminine. When a woman complains about her partner, she will push him into complaining back at her,
Yeah.
because no man ever experienced historically, to a great extent, his wife complaining, because she was getting everything she required. I mean, why would you complain if your husband just did some dirty, dangerous, difficult things? You don't care if he comes into the house dirty. You don't mind cleaning up after him or doing his laundry. You're so grateful because you can't survive without him. But we're no longer in survival. So women don't get a free pass to feel love for the man in their lives, or for themselves, for that matter. So what we need is, we have to realize we're in a different world today. And what we see through our scientific tests is that women have a lot of hormonal problems, meaning their hormones go out of balance. And particularly all the struggle women go through at menopause, for many women today, is not experienced by women in indigenous tribes, where they have more of the male role and the female role. We're beyond male female role, but we're moving into role mates. Okay, this is our soulmates. We're role mates before, and now our purpose is to fulfill each other's soul. That's emotional fulfillment, to be truly loved, to be seen, to be naked, to be heard. This is for the woman, and for the man to be able to provide a new kind of support for her that brings her to ecstasy, which biologically means for her to be multi-orgasmic. This is the woman's potential to have lasting attraction to her husband, to experience multi-orgasmic, or at least orgasmic sex, and which is making love.